Yo, what's up, everybody? My name is Zenitsu, and you are listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics from news to meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do sometimes try to stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, but fear not, if you ever miss the live stream, then it's always uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, as well as being on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. So please feel free to do that whole YouTube and social media doobly-doo thing and to leave that like, rating, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast, or at least we like to think it does. So today I am back with Guardian from Team Blank, and we are going to be talking about the most divisive ban and restriction update to date. That's going to be the big overarching topic because obviously Worlds just happened, which we could obviously talk a little bit about Worlds, because I did live stream all of the Worlds games and my overall initial impression of the ban and restriction list, as well as making a video on just Bandai's reasonings when it comes to the ban and restriction list and giving a little bit of extra thoughts in terms of the context. So this is probably going to be a little bit more of a deeper dive into, obviously, how we feel, how the community feels, and what's going to happen with the game as a result of this ban and restriction list. So yeah, we got a good amount of stuff to talk about. But before we get into the big topic, we have the comment of the week. So if you want your comment to be featured in next week's episode, feel free to leave your thoughts about anything from this episode or just in general down in the comments below. And this week we have Benjamin Wiseman as the commenter. So making 8001 12 packs is baffling, especially since it has more cards to pull than any other recent set. I'm glad that new cards aren't super good in a case. New cards aren't super good in case pulling them is going to prove to be difficult. The Digimon for them mostly fit with the reprints, so it kind of just makes sense on what the new cards are trying to support. So it was at least a decent planning. And I think like that kind of a comment is for the most part pretty true about 8001. A lot of the decks that are present and supported, as well as like some just good general reprints, really make 8001 seem like it's a decent product. But again, it all comes down to pull rates. So we actually started getting some early, not really leakage, but like early estimations of what the pull rates are going to be looking like in 8001. So that's going to be pretty interesting to look over because 8001 is, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's good that we have, it's good that we have a reprint set. I think the game needs it. I don't think we need the reprint set done in this particular manner. You know?
No. It really should have been. Honestly, I don't like comparing it, but it really should have had the same kind of box size as RB01.
Like, it should have just been a normal box.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's, 196 different cards in the set?
Roughly.
Yeah, that's like...
And then only 25 of them are new cards, so...
Yeah, and that's double the amount of cards pretty much in a normal set, because a normal set usually has about like 107-ish, 110 if you want to just round up and be generous. So this having, again, rounded up about 200 just makes it very interesting, and obviously pull rates are going to have to be different, just like they were in RB01. RB01, as we knew, was a complete and utter disaster, and I think, like, the early pull rates that we can glean off of, like, what, the 2 boxes that were confirmed opened, they're very interesting. So, if anyone's unfamiliar with the pull rates, we have one gold frame per box. Then a box is going to have around an estimate of 3 alt arts. Then it's going to have an estimate of around 5 secret rares. And then it also has 10 super rares, like base super rares, not alt arts. On top of one pack slot in the pack is going to be dedicated towards new cards. So that way, maybe it's going to be a little bit easier to get the new cards, because I think, like, what, RB01, the new cards were in competition for the cards of the same rarity, and they were skewed towards the newer stuff, but it wasn't, like, it was possible to basically just get none of the new stuff.
There was no doubt on that. The RB01 pull rates was some of the most atrocious in this card game. To where on the opposite end, this one has just been such shortcutted that you do still get a decent amount of stuff involving the new stuff, but your pull rates for the reprints is what gets sniped.
Yeah, because there's a lot of chaff in the reprints. So just because, like, you get 10 base SRs, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the good 10. I gotta remember with RB01 what the actual breakdown was of the set. Give me a second to pull that up, because, like, usually you could do, like, off of a single booster box, you could already start to do, like, case estimations. So let's go to new generations, scroll all the way down, skip all of this useless chaff that Bandai has up at the forefront. So your super rares, you get there's about 40 of them. So in one box, you get 10 of them, which isn't, like, too bad. Because that means, like, on average, with 4 booster boxes, you should get mathematical averages would dictate you get at least one of each if it came from the same case. So that's kind of like where my brain is kind of putting the pieces together. Secret rares, there's a total of 14 of them, and the fact that you get, like, 5 of them per box means that to get a playset of the secret rares, again, with mathematical averages, you need about 3 booster boxes. So on, like, the lower rarity side, outside of gold frames and other stuff, it doesn't necessarily seem too bad. Obviously the commons, uncommons, and rares, those are going to be a little bit on the scuff side. But I mean, those are low rarity cards, so that's okay. My big concern is the one guaranteed new card per pack. That means in a case setting, let's just say a case is going to be, a case was normally 12 boxes, so this is half box size, so that means this would be 24. So that
24
means, yeah,
is roughly about that, yeah.
so that means, like, what? You get to see in a case one of each new card? Like, something here isn't exactly adding up. So I think the new cards are, like, definitely going to be a very contentious point. Like, granted, again, as we kind of, like, were alluding to in the last episode, the card quality seems significantly lower power compared to what we're currently playing with. So the majority of the decks that are upgraded and updated, the majority of these new cards literally aren't helping those decks. So my recommendation is just buy these cards as early as humanly possible, because once people realize how hard they actually are to pull, then, like what we saw with RB01, the prices could probably skyrocket pretty egregiously.
There's no doubt on that one. They would actually probably rocket up quite fast, just because this set, again, and for those that haven't seen or listened to the first one when we talked about AD01, this set is actually quite good for competitive players just getting into the game.
Yeah, I
So,
would say, like, if you are a new player to the game, and you don't mind spending the slight extra premium on less packs. This is probably just like more condensed of like good stuff that you probably would consider using for the most part. So I think like this definitely feels. Actually, you know what it feels like? This feels like
Hmm.
this would be really good prize support. Like, this is a booster box designed to be incredibly good prize support. That's what this feels like to me. It doesn't feel like an actual product I would want to buy. It feels like a product a store would want to buy to use as prize support.
Which is very likely, honestly, because most stores that actually support the game have a hard time keeping their players interested.
Well, the other thing is like the way my understanding of most Bandai TCGs at this point is the vast majority of sales with a set happens within the first month. And if a set is not able to sell very well within the first month, then it just is going to sit on the shelf and pretty much rot and become what's known as a toxic asset because then they can't move that product. So, like, obviously, toxic assets is something stores that they just don't want. And most of the time, those toxic assets end up just getting offered to players as prize support. Um, because otherwise, they're never going to move these products. So I feel
Yeah.
like this just feels like it would be very good for new players. Obviously, having a more condensed box opening experience that'll give them more good cards than bad cards definitely is very good. And I feel like because of that, it makes it very appealing, but at the same time, um, I could see this being like RB01, where it just quickly becomes a toxic asset, and it just makes for fantastic prize support because you'll always get something useful in it. Um, yeah, I'm very curious on how this set is going to perform because if the set flops like 8001 or like RB01, it could cause irreparable damage to the game. Like actually irreparable damage because a lot of stores already aren't super happy with Digimon from, RB01, which is what caused the BT16, BT17 and EX6 shortage is because the sales of RB01 did so bad, stores didn't want to order product for the next couple of sets. And those were the
Hmm.
sets that stores had to order right after seeing how well RB01 did. So that lost a lot of store confidence, which meant a lot of stores just weren't buying those sets, which means Bandai printed less sets, which means, again, like that's why they were in such short supply. I do understand there was like at the time a little bit of like supply issue constraints on top of that, which didn't help things at all. But like timeline of events, like if 8001 doesn't do well, the stuff that stores need to pre-order pretty much now will end up getting short printed as more stores stop supporting Digimon as a game because now they can't sell the product anymore.
And that overall is a very bad thing because, strictly speaking, as my stores where I actually am have stopped actually supporting Digimon because of this. Bandai doing this is actually just a cash grab for them because they thought, hey, we can just reprint and they'll just suck it up and deal with it. And we'll just make it a small box, same price. Good luck, people. Not realizing that they're killing their game. Or if they realize that, they just don't care.
I think they just don't care because I've already like I said this on stream. I've already lost 2 to 3 locals already. Like, and granted, I guess I'm like I was blessed to be in an area where I didn't have to drive an hour out to locals, and now that so many game stores have stopped supporting Digimon, I actually do have to make that hour drive to get to a
Not great.
locals, and that's obviously not great because now, especially in this current geopolitical environment with gas going like through the roof, I have less incentive to actually drive, like make the hour drive out, drive the 25 miles to and from, so 50-mile round trip to my locals to just play Digimon. Like there's less reason for me to do so, and it's just unfortunate. And I think like a lot of other players are probably in that same type of a camp where it's just like, maybe it just isn't worth it to drive out to my locals because it's just too difficult sometimes.
I'm not gonna deny that. With my team actually out here, not not blank, but we call ourselves Friendly Fire because we always end up fighting each other. But
That's a good name.
right, the other, the more general group name is Collateral Damage.
That's also a good name. Those are two great
You could
names.
you could blame Nick for coming up with the names on those,
Those are
but
fantastic names.
back to my point is we are seeing more and more points on do we really want to do it this week or not? And most of the time, our teammate Thanatos is just saying he wants to do it, but Nikki and I are just like, nah, man, doesn't feel like it's worth it right now.
Yeah, especially going into the main topic, especially with how bad the recent ban and restriction list actually is. Um it has me very concerned for the future of the game. Like incredibly concerned. I've been saying it like in my Discord and in private chats that like I honestly think this ban and restriction list is going to make it or break it for some people. And it's going to give us insight on the future direction of the game because this shows what Bandai is looking at and what Bandai cares about. And
Fortune.
obviously, it's not anywhere we would want it to be. So,
No.
I guess we could like briefly go over the ban and restrictions, just because like in case and this is somebody's first time exposure to the ban and restriction announcement. Like, I've covered it in video, I covered it in a post. It's been talked on social media ad nauseum. But yeah, so effective March 16th, we have BT23 Shakamon limited to one, BT3 Malomyotismon limited to one, BT10 Skullbaluchi limited to one, EX5 Doberman X Antibody limited to one, EX5 Cerberusmon X Antibody limited to one, then getting unlimited BT9 Sunrise Buster and EX4 Mach Gao. So
So
that is the list in a nutshell. We do have the official explanations. You could go watch my YouTube video if you want to see all of that. So we're just going to get right into our overall thoughts and opinions on this ban restriction list.
they gave Hootie a slap on the wrist. This that thing is a war criminal. It should still have been put down like the dog it was.
I'm not saying you're incorrect because you're 100% correct. Like, Shakamon was the obvious hit when it came to stopping Hoodie from looping itself. But the big thing that seems like Bandai completely ignored or is like okay with is the fact that Hoodie is one of the most efficient and effective engines in the entire game. Like the amount of value you get for literally doing almost next to nothing is like borderline disgusting. And all you need is like one tamer and one rookie to be able to just decimate the opponent's field and then expand way wider than what's reasonably possible.
It's the sad truth on that one. The fact that the Chitose, it was a problem card. It was one of the key cards we brought up when we talked about the Hootie, on top of Hootiemon itself. There, the combination of the cards ultimately just are not a very believable or good for the game's health, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, like it very clearly causes tempo and efficiency issues that put a lot of stress and strain on anything that's not able to do what it's doing, which, spoiler, most decks aren't. Granted, like, yes, you could make the argument and say, oh, but Hoodie's never, like, won anything, but Hoodie does take up a vast majority of representation and top slots because it's still significantly stronger than most things in the entire game. So even though it hasn't won, it's still one of the best things that we could be doing. And obviously, a lot of players are teching against Hoodie specifically. Because if they don't, Hoodie could just accidentally steamroll all over them, and they're just like, that felt incredibly awful of an experience. What a great game, JK, LOL, and decide to, like, I don't know, do something else at that point. I do think the Shakamon hit, like I said, was needed, but they should have hit, like, obviously the card 2 hit was just Hoodie herself because she's the card that's enabling all the hyper degeneracy. But I feel like with the Shakamon hit, they should have at least hit Chitose as well to kind of like curb some of the engine a little bit. Because what people are probably going to theorize of doing now with Hoodie is Pyodramon. Like, now,
Actually, no.
no.
They're not even leaning towards it.
What do
There
you
was
mean?
action. Rookie Rusher on X actually showed the new Hootie OTK using Mitamamon.
Mitamamon?
Mitamamon.
Like, EX5 Mitamamon?
Hmm.
Okay, so I guess there's two OTKs.
You quite literally go in, use Hootie, standard combo. You alliance 2 checks, slam into your opponent, or DNA into the Sylphimon 2 more checks, Digivolve into Mitamamon, and then you're able to play out Digimon, give them rush, and virtually just start winning from there.
Hold on, let me read what Mitamamon
By
actually
trashing the top
does.
card of your security card, you may play a level 4 lower Yo Digimon from hand without paying the cost. Gains rush. You heard that, right? Yellow.
It's not. Oh my god, it's not even vaccine locked. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So this plays out. Okay, yeah. So this would play out the
Plays out
Hoodie.
Hootie.
So you play out a second Hoodie, then Hoodie's on play effect triggers, and
Take
then
the Chitose, play the Chitose.
yep, then Chitose
Chitose
plays
spits
out.
stuff out.
Okay, yeah, and then you just get access to a new DNA. Wow, what a combo. Um, yeah. So the other direction that I think people are going to lean into is going to be if you're going to try to remain like a degenerate OTK deck, um, you're going to use Imperial. So
Yeah, Imperial is the other way you go with that because of the fact that the ace still unsuspends. The new 8001 stuff is a new war criminal on the block.
yeah, because you could just go into the 8001 Pyildramon, and then the 8001 Pyildramon, it gains blocker, or not blocker, it can't be redirected, and it gains battle protection, so you don't even need to have barrier. Barrier's just nice. But yeah, so now you don't need barrier going into this, and then it's when attacking reduces the digivolution of what you're digivolving into Imperial by 2. So the card that you're gonna go into is actually the starter deck Imperial. I mean, there's a couple of different
Which
Imperials
Imperial you're
you
talking
could go.
about? The Dragon mode?
Yeah, the dragon mode from the starter deck. Because this lets you play out a level 4, like it just unlocks a new
Oh
DNA for free.
yeah. Oh yeah, I see what you're talking about. You use the Okay, I didn't think about that one actually. You
Yeah.
basically do what it originally was trying to do with its Pael stuff, but with Hootie, and Hootie basically just spits out everything, and you're just ramping up all over again.
Yeah, you just do hoodies on play, play out another body, then line up another DNA, and then yeah, you're just basically doing Pyildramon and Imperial shenanigans to just get like free extra attacks and just be super again toxic and degenerate, abusing the DNA mechanic. And I feel like that's like, yes, there's obviously something wrong with the DNA mechanic at this point because now we have even more efficient ways to get into it versus when it was initially designed. So that's causing, again, a lot of unintentional, like, bullshit in a sense. Um, and the fact that a lot of things in Hoodie is like within Imperial's colors means you could just run like Jade Memory Boost, because the key level 4s you would use are all in either green or blue. A lot of your low end is going to also be green or blue. So like you already have color consistency. On top of the fact that like Hoodie's engine in of itself just draws magically a butt ton of cards. So yeah, this Hoodie is still prime to just be experimented with to see how broken we could get it to be with other, like, in combination with other cards. And I guess, like, maybe that's Bandai's point is like, oh, but now you could play the other cards to do hyper toxic degenerate shit and nothing really changes. And I feel like that's part of the problem, is the fact that nothing is changing. Like, literally nothing is changing from this ban and restriction update. And that's all anyone would ask for, is we want the top performing decks to get hit, so that way other decks could be viable again. Because we're going to start seeing a consolidation unless there's more power creep, and then obviously that's going to change the meta based on the matchup spread and whatnot. But usually when we get into a settled meta, it starts shrinking. It doesn't start expanding, it starts shrinking. Because people find out what's the best stuff, and then they just want to play the best stuff, and yeah, it's not necessarily the greatest spot you want to be.
At this point, it's probably better for Bandai to just start the block format.
Like, honestly, like, as divisive as rotation would be, it honestly, at this point, just wouldn't even do anything, because, like, okay, let's just say they start rotation, and we're only allowed to play block 5, 6, and 4 cards. That's the majority of what we're already playing with. So,
Oh, no,
like,
I'm talking about from like 24 or 25 forward. Just like nothing from behind us. We just start this shiz anew.
yeah, like, I mean, the problem is the power creep's already so high, we're just mostly going to be playing the newest shit anyway. And, like, the new stuff is in slap design, so, like, it's more insular and well built as a result, because it gives us access to more potential tools to use compared to a lot of like other archetypical designs. So that's what's making slap decks so strong, is the fact that their toolbox is fundamentally deeper than the majority of the rest of the game. Because again, with Hoodie, it literally can do everything. It has security attack plus, it has pretty much jamming, it can play stuff for free, it does so much, and it interacts with so many different mechanics that there's no actual way to just full stop it. There literally is no way to full stop it as is. And the same thing is with Time Strangers. It's just like, yeah, I have Unsuspend, I have Security Attack Plus, I have Protection, I have De-Digivolve, I have Play by Effects. I like it. They literally just do everything.
Yeah, I played Time Stranger at my last locals this past Friday, and one of the guys that played there got really pissed off because he could not activate any of his Gallant Mon effects because I was under 13k, and I was still controlling the board.
Oh, right, and they'll have like one good deletion effect that you could just say no to, and then their whole strategy, because you stop their one specific thing that the entire deck is built for, now no longer functions. So it's just like, but meanwhile, I could just hard slam as a Time Stranger. I'll just hard slam a level 6 and call it a day, use my Tamer to then gain an attack at the end of the turn, and then also use my Tamer to then double up my abilities and potentially play out options for free. So yeah, like something from Time Strangers very clearly needed to get hit. And the fact that like nothing, like literally nothing else that's meta relevant right now got hit is very concerning, because that to me tells me the way that we're currently playing is exactly what Bandai wants. And this is not exactly what aligns with player expectation, because we're in a high damage format, so games magically could end on turn 2, most of the time turn 3, and we'll walk away with a very unfulfilling and unsatisfying experience.
Yeah.
Which again is not exactly what players want, which is why we looked to this ban and restriction list to be like, please change something. We don't feel like playing this hyper toxic degenerate bullshit. And even the Japanese players, from what I saw on Twitter, they weren't even happy with this. And it feels like this ban and restriction list is, again, catering more towards Japanese based formats. Because you look at the other cards and it's just like, okay, you have Myotismon. Myotis Loop was spooky for a hot second, but it was obviously played more in Japan than it was here. And again, winning a best of 1 versus a best of 3 means that your deck needs to be more consistent if you're playing in a best of 3. So you have an easier time high rolling the opponent and creating bad experiences. Granted, Myotismon, the all turns effect not being limited to once per turn and whenever literally anything but him dies is incredibly powerful. So you could just generate literally infinite memory off of this card, and that's kind of just gross. So, like, I understand
I
that.
should know. I played against Nick with his Myotis. That thing was nasty.
Yeah, and then you had Skullbaluchimon, which was sometimes used in the Dark Animal stuff, but, like, again, this was just another future-proofing card because we have way more abilities to discard and way more additional timings that are added into the game that this card wasn't necessarily anticipating on. So, like, the idea on this is you could pair this up with, like, something like a Time Stranger Tamer, where it's like if they accidentally print a... no, so you could use this technically in Titamon or something, where it's just like... or Titans, where the idea would be you use the Asuna Tamer to play out something at the start of the main phase, and then you would be able to play out like an Ogremon or something, discard the Skullbaluchimon to then be able to Digivolve. Again, this is all during start of turn, so if you have a Mem Setter on the field, you could just Digivolve for free using the Skullbaluchi, snap the memory back over because you have that pending trigger. It's doing exactly the war crimes that, like, Fen was kind of doing in a sense.
Yep. And Bandai don't. It's like I keep saying, Bandai really don't care. They just want the money, and as far as they are concerned, screw everything else. We don't even know what Titans are coming in 24 and 25 yet. Because
No.
Titans are still a very prevalent. We do know that Plutomon is coming, and Plutomon is going to be kind of that middle ground because it has its own archetype in the form of Titans. However, in the lore of the Time Stranger game, it is also Olympus 12.
Well,
So it's kind of
he's
that
not
bridge
really an
that
Olympus.
crosses.
He's not a real Olympus
I'm saying
12.
in the actual game, they count because of how it's set up. They counted him as Olympus 12.
I'd have to go back and fact check you on that, but either way,
look at the end battle at Chronomon and tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, he was there in the end battle, yes, but he didn't count towards
His
the
power
Olympus 12.
his power was part of that, so
No, but, like, when you're doing your whole Time Stranger shenanigans thing on recruiting all of the Olympus 12, he was not one of the crested Olympus 12s that appeared on the mural type thing that you were unlocking. So he's
sure
not...
about that?
Yes. I am 100% positive he is not actually an Olympus 12. And he was not on that mural. Or like that dial or whatever you would call it.
The Akashic.
Yeah, he was not there. He was just, like Royal Knights, just a force that came in at the end that was strong enough to help out against that battle. But anyway, so speaking of Plutomon, we knew Plutomon is going to be a thing. We know Plutomon's evolution line is Cerberus Spawn, so that's why it feels like the Cerberus X and Dober X were more, like, I can't even call them preemptive hits, because their explanation basically just tells us stop playing this deck. Like, more than anything, it doesn't talk about any of the balancing issues that these cards have caused over the past 2 to 3 years that they've been allowed to be played. Their literal explanation is stop playing this deck. And people are theorizing it's like, okay, this is going to be problematic with the new Plutomon support, knowing that these are part of his evolution line. But still, these cards were hit way too late. Like, sure, you could say that Skull Bellucciamon and Myotismon were hit too late also, considering the decks that they're played in don't really matter, but they're more actual problems to the future card design, where these were just menaces for a very long time. So, if anyone's unfamiliar with Dober X and Cerberus X, the reason why they're so good is because they proactively fill up your trash. So, you need 0 setup in your trash in order to gain maximum output off of your abilities. So, Dobermon comes with a memory generation inheritable, which you use in combination with a rookie that gives you memory also. So, when you go into your Cerberus, it actually costs 1, it doesn't cost 3, which is like, yeah, sure, a lot of level 5s at this point cost 1 to evo into. But Cerberus Mon for a lot of level 6s is used because of the unsuspend to potentially line up OTKs. So, yeah, he's, like, they're both very problematic cards, and I've been wanting them gone for years. I'm happy that they're gone, but meta-competitive-wise, like, it just feels really tone-deaf because these decks weren't necessarily seeing that much play. Again, favoritism more towards Japanese players because a lot of them were playing Dark Animal plus K plus whatever. I think like the more common one was Mastimon. So they were playing K, Dark Animals, and Mastimon and just doing hyper degenerate, unfun things.
Leave my Masty alone, man. She did nothing.
You're right. That's why she's not on the list. And that's why Dober X and Cerberus X is. And the funny thing is, this was the, like, looking at the decks represented in Worlds, this was the third Worlds where this engine was shown. We didn't see any of the matches with it, but there was a person playing Levia at Worlds. So this was the third time this engine has been used. EX5 was such a big colossal design mistake that it's honestly hilarious. So I took a look at like all of the sets that have the most cards banned and limited from them, and BT7, EX5, and promos. Those are the 3 sets that have the most cards banned and restricted from them. And the most banned and restricted color is purple by a long shot. The most common typing of card that was banned and limited, I believe, like, one of the more popular or common ones was also X antibodies. Like, Bandai has a very bad time balancing X antibody Digimon. And, like, there's reasons for that, but Bandai doesn't want to fix any of those.
No, they do not.
Yeah, so
Either way, let's move on to the tail end because we've been talking about the ones that got restricted for a hot minute. Why the hell did Sunrise get off?
because it's not doing anything and it's not going to be doing anything. I explained it in my video that this feels very BT7 Tommy coded in terms of like the explanation, because it's just like, yeah, we initially were using this card all the way back in like BT10 when not Shikua, God, I'm blanking, Sakuyamon, there we go, it eventually came to me. So Sakuyamon Maid Mode was abusing this card. Shine Greymon was obviously abusing this card. Cross Hearts was abusing this card. So there was a lot of decks back then that were like abusing this card. But again, you look at BT10 compared to now, and now removal options are like borderline unplayable. So it's just like them giving us back this card literally is going to do absolutely nothing because we're not going to play it. Like, there's 0 decks in the entire game that would benefit from this because we have lots of different ways of setting up our Tamer for free and easy, because you do have to follow the color requirements of this card. And, like, sure, the uncapped minus 3k per each of your Tamers is nice, but the game is so fast that it ends on turn 3, so reasonably, when is this effect actually going to be good? And like I said, we're favoring other options that are accelerating our deck's game plan rather than trying to tear down the opponents. So having an option paying 5 to play out a Tamer and maybe kill something just is not tempo efficient anymore. there's way better things that we could be doing with that. Like, honestly, I would rather just play Digital Gate Open at that point. Because at least Digital Gate Open, not color restricted, gives me a potential 2 draw because it searches 3 and it grabs a Tamer and a Digimon. And then later, it just lets me play a Tamer for free. Yeah. So, like, we just have better shit to play than Sunrise Buster. Do I think it's a cute card to bring back? Yeah, probably. Like, maybe something can find a good home for this at this point. But I think it's like, again, it speaks to the power creep that's been in the game to where it's just like cards that were banned or limited for a very good reason can very easily start coming off. And I feel like this is like the start of like looking and examining what truly deserves to be on the ban and restriction list as a result. And that's kind of same with like Macau, where it's just like, yeah, this just makes OTKing in Mirage easier. And the fact that we're no longer playing the level 4 that gains you a memory when an opponent adds a card to their hand, because that was what was causing the speed issue, is you had the level 3 and the level 4, so you go into the level 5, bounce their Digimon back to their hand, and then you gain 2 memory, effectively making this, shocker, a level 5 that evos for 1. So, yeah, it's just like, no wonder why this card's no longer, like, needing to be restricted, is because we're not even running that level 4. We're doing other egregious things instead. Don't get me wrong. As a as a Gaugamon player, I fully understand what we're doing, and all this does is mean that we could just run this as the second best level 5 again for a deck that's already underperforming compared to a lot of modern OTK conventions, because Mach takes way too long, or not Mach, just Mirage takes way too long to set up compared to other OTK decks. But, I mean, when he goes off, he just dumps damage. It's so funny. I love the deck so much, but I acknowledge that there's better OTKs I could be playing instead.
Yeah, but at this point in the game, Tax Wolf coming back would have actually slowed everyone the freaking hell down.
He would have. He would actually be a very devastating force because he follows under one of the cardinal design philosophies of like, if you're turboing up into your level 6, you need to do one of like 2/3 things. You either need to win the game on the spot, or you need to stop the opponent from reasonably interacting with you. Whether that is through protection or floodgates is to be determined. In Mirage case, he's more on the floodgate design. But, yeah, like, this card coming off just means that Mirage has a slightly easier time OTKing. And people are theorizing both of these is to support Data Squad stuff that's coming out. But trust me,
Very likely.
Trust me, based on Bandai's current card design, Data Squad shit's just going to be one played with Data Squad shit. Like, they're not going to give a shit about their old decks at all. It's just going to be more optimal to play them inside of their own stuff, but, like, they'll incidentally support the older deck. And I mean, what I mean by incidentally is just like, yeah, it just so happens to play along with it, but, like, obviously it's better in their own specific sub-archetype, which would be Data Squad. So I don't know exactly what Bandai's doing, but like the rest of this just feels like it is trying to look into the future of the game. And my big issue with Mach, more specifically, is the fact that this is kind of just like an open admission to Bandai being totally okay with the egregious amount of power creep that the game currently is in. Like, the rest of the list already was alluding to that, and this kind of just further cemented that idea in my head. Because it's like, okay, obviously you don't give a shit about older OTK decks, so what other old OTK decks are now free to unlock is actually a question that could be on people's minds. So it's just like, okay, is the Aguni promo free to come off? Is the Sting promo free or not promo? Starter deck card free to come off? Is Lobo free to come off? Um, like what is actually free to start coming off? Because like a lot of their reasonings for why things got hit are now starting to unravel and be undone due to the vast amount of power creep that's currently in the game.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, is Eismon and Eismon scatter mode okay at this point? Like, I don't know, because the reason why
The
Eismon scatter
Eismon, I'm
mode.
gonna say no, considering Heavy is still around.
No, like there's
You know?
very good reasons why they should stay gone, which is why I'm not a huge advocate of taking cards off, but like looking at what Bandai has already done, it's just like, okay, what actually could theoretically come off this list and cause pretty much no harm or damage to the game. So it's just like, obviously, Fen, as an example, he needs to stay on because he was used as a turn 2 degenerate OTK deck. Even though that OTK wasn't super consistent at turn 2, it still was just another OTK deck. But at that logic, we have Time Strangers that's doing arguably more consistent turn 2 OTKs and having a way easier time doing it. So does that mean Fen could come off because we already have more powerful OTKs? Same thing with Grandis, with the Grand Kawagamon promo. Like, that was used for Grandis to be able to OTK. But with how much DP decks are able to play around with, is Grandis actually okay? Like, is he just too slow or not good enough or whatever? Like,
I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
on that one.
Right, and that's why
Honestly,
like
Grandis X was one of the more powerful green decks they've had. So I
yeah,
can't really say.
right, like is Grandis's OTK still too powerful to be problematic in today's standards? I know Doa Greymon technically is, because like Alphamon, and if anyone played BT9 Alphamon or Ryukin in its heyday, that deck was like absolutely insane. So I think like Dora Greymon shouldn't come off. I think Shoutmon Cross 4 also shouldn't come off either. Just because, again, people don't necessarily remember how degenerate that card is, and we technically got cards to make this even better. So, like, I don't think that Shoutmon Cross 4 could come off either. Do I think he's a turn 2 OTK? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Um, but, like, if that's our metric, like, does this turn 2 OTK? We're at a really bad spot if that's our metric for things to be considered to come off the list.
Unfortunately, yeah, because it just isn't great anymore because that turn to OTK. Freaking the fact that you could get slammed by Mastimon, Hootie, TS by turn 2 made the game quite toxic to deal with. Mallow was a bit of a monster to kind of curb them because it had more control elements to it. So,
Yeah, but he wasn't turn 2 OTKing relatively consistently, and that was the big
no.
factor. Like, Rocks and Minerals is not a turn 2 OTK. That's usually a turn 3, maybe 4 OTK.
It's the same with Vortex.
Puppets is a deck that is like absolutely borderline cracked. You set up your options and then you do not spend memory for the rest of the game, which is kind of nuts to think about. And like again, that's the type of power level we're currently dealing with that players are having issues with, and Bandai is openly saying no, all of that is fine. Like I get it. There's a lot of cards that they could hit. They could have hit to try to curve some of the issues that might not be the newest cards. So like Tumblemon, no reason why he couldn't have came off. We just had a BT23 card come off. Would that impact Rocks and Minerals? Yeah, slightly, but not enough to make the
I think
deck
it would have
unplayable.
impacted quite a bit.
Yeah, but not enough to make the deck unplayable is like the point. Like, it would just stem some of his egregious memory generation, so, like, he can't do a whole bunch of extra shit. But he still has way, like, really powerful play lines. Um, I think, like, hitting BT24 Medusa, or not Medusa, Lamia, that one might be a bit of a stretch because, like, yeah, we literally just got that card and everyone else has their Warper. But I think, like, again, the power discrepancy is every other Warper doesn't cost one.
Yeah.
And, like, you could make the argument of, like, oh, yeah, but there's still tons of level 5s that just evo for one or for nothing. And it's just like, Lamia is just another one of those. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll concede that. So maybe the egg could have gotten hit or something. So that way it loses its awkwardness of digivolving, like, mid-attack. But I don't know. The point is, there's things that they could have hit to stem some of those issues to at least quell players' concerns. Because, like, obviously, enough people have talked about the current issues with the game and the decks that are currently doing well and why they're doing well. That's something Bandai should be looking at and being like, okay, we could fix this. And the fact that they chose actively to do none of that is very concerning. Very, very deeply concerning.
Indeed. It's like,
So,
guys.
right. So, like, what? Now we have to wait 6 more months, 6 to 8 months, in order to get a new ban restriction list. And by then, the issues that we're currently facing probably are going to be solved because they're just going to introduce newer ones. I mean, granted, okay,
Yeah.
obviously, Time Strangers is still going to be cracked as fuck, because that just started, and it's already outperforming the vast majority of the rest of the game. So yeah, like, something with Time Strangers is already fucked up, and they should acknowledge that. Like, they should actually stop and think and look at what's going on with these archetypes that's making them do this. And, like, again, it just feels like Bandai doesn't give a shit. Like, they just don't. So I will have to say, did you watch Worlds?
I did not. I had work.
Okay. So I watched all of Worlds on stream. So feel free to go back to my stream and you could watch the gameplay with my commentary, or you could look up the official stream and watch some of the games there. But I will have to say, out of all 4 matches that were shown, or was it 5? It was either 4 or 5. But out of all the games that were shown, Ben's was arguably the closest to peak Digimon. And I feel like that's what Bandai wants out of the game. Is what happened with Ben's Rocks and Minerals versus the other guy's puppet deck. Because the macros of the game essentially boiled down to one person moves out, does a decent amount of damage, but doesn't kill the opponent, and then it's up to the opponent to then respond by moving out, going up into their level 6, dismantling the board that was just built, and then they basically just trade board states back and forth while not killing each other directly and outright. And I feel like that's the macro level gameplay that Bandai is looking for.
Yeah.
So they technically have that intended gameplay experience. Because, like I said, Ben with Rocks and Minerals was just trading board states with puppets, and it was a matter of who's able to rebuild more times than the other person was going to be the winner of that match. And unfortunately for Ben, Puppets just has better rebuild states because it plays more Digimon out, it could Digivolve more times for free, and do other, like, hyper egregious shit. Which, again, is why there's no reason Karakurumon couldn't have gotten hit, or at the very least, the old Mirai Tamer could have gotten hit. Like,
But leave my Massimon alone, man. What do you have against her?
no, the Puppets Mirai.
Oh.
Not Mastimon Mirai. The one that's EX9 that says search for something and then play out a Digimon for reduced play cost. Because they use that ability to, if they don't generate tokens to sacrifice, they'll use that ability to tucker to the bottom, play out a rookie for free, and then sacrifice the rookie that they just played out for free. Ideally, the rookie will have an on-delete ability, so you could trigger your on-delete ability, and you could just see that decks and cards are just doing more and more and more and more the way that we're using them.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a point where like we're reaching a critical mass of effects triggering and lining up specific effects to where it's just not necessarily the most enjoyable of experience. So I think like that's part of the big problem that players are having is like they just want the game to be slightly toned down so that way we could actually think about doing shit. But like if Puppets was able to do its thing optimally, it would have just killed Ben the second it moved out, and Ben wouldn't have even gotten a turn to play. But because of the playstyles between both players' decks, they weren't able to set up their optimal OTK, and that lead to them forcing each other to trade board states back and forth. And I feel like again that key macro level gameplay is what Bandai is chasing after. It's just then you get like finals where it's Medusa versus Time Stranger, and Time Stranger is just stalling because it's just dismantling Medusa's board over and over again, and Medusa is just rebuilding over and over again. And again, it's the same trading of back and forth where it's just like, okay, you could say that's decent gameplay, but at some point you gotta push. And neither player was able to really push. So it just created a very boring back and forth. So there's a balance between how you want the back and forth exchange between building and demolishing to actually go.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a fine line that Bandai will never find, and I don't think they care to find it. As long as they just see, oh, players are doing exactly what we want. They're dismantling each other's boards and rebuilding, and that's the fun part of Digimon. But the rebuilding phase, because nothing costs anything anymore, it doesn't necessarily lead to the greatest of gameplay experiences either, because now we're just bitching about how we're not paying for our cards. Which is awkward, because, like, from a competitive player's perspective, you just want to do the most broken and degenerate shit. But, like, again, if that's not leading to an enjoyable gameplay experience, then why support that?
Yeah.
And that's the part that I feel like a lot of people just get lost in the sauce, because they'll see, oh, look at Worlds had like 10 different decks represented in the 23 players that played in Worlds. I don't remember if it was actually 10, but it was around there. I think it was double digits. So they'll be like, oh, the format's so wide, it's so healthy.
From when I saw the bracket, it was 4 rounds.
I could count.
It was like 8
decks.
players.
Yeah, I could count how many decks were actually at Worlds. I have the image of the Worlds breakdown. I just got to scroll for it. Here it is. All right. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 exact. Wow, I was right. Holy crap. That doesn't happen very often. But if anyone was actually curious about the World's breakdowns, you had 5 Hoodie, 5 Jupiter Time Strangers, 4 Medusa, 3 Iliad Time Strangers, which is Time Stranger Megazoo Slop, 1 Aqua Time Strangers. You had 1 Puppets, 1 Rocks, 1 Millie. You had 1 Levia and 1 Royal Knights. Those were your top 10 decks represented at Worlds. I'll scroll down so there people could actually see a cleaner image. And I feel like what was brought at Worlds literally highlights every single issue that is wrong with the game. Like, that's the funny part, is this list highlights
Royal
everything.
Knight's something that's wrong with the game.
Do I need to actually explain that?
No, I'm messing with you.
I was gonna say, like,
I was actually rage baiting.
yeah, I'm like, do I need to actually answer that? So I'm not gonna like go too deep into it, but like, yeah, Royal Knights being the strongest clock based deck means that there is a default amount of turns that you can reasonably play before Royal Knights just automatically wins the game. And Royal Knights can set up their clock probably as early as turn 4. So that means any game that's exceeding 4 turns, if you don't have the proper defenses, will just automatically end. And it has one of the best defensive lines of play, which like you could say is like good for the game, but like it's not what you do, it's how you do it, so it's arguably not fun. But yeah, so like obviously Levia supported the fact that like these older engines that they never addressed are still hyper problematic. You had Millie, which is the degenerate loop deck that like, yeah, I'm just going to do like all of these arbitrary actions to end in this one Digimon that's just going to fuck over the entire field. And then I just continue to build a stronger board presence. Yeah, so Millie is like your degenerate loop deck representative. You have Medusa, Puppets, and Rocks and Minerals being like the fastest stack-based decks that you could play. And two of them have their own OTKs. It is a little bit harder for Medusa to OTK, but like Medusa could just shit on a lot of things and just leave a very hard board state for the opponent to interact with.
The fact that they changed where the way she went in her stack build, where now the current Medusa's target graveyard and spin stuff back, actually makes it kind of nutty.
Yeah, then you have the slew of different Time Stranger and Hoodie decks being the slop representatives. So like if you actually like look at the slop decks, you have Hoodie and Time Stranger being 5, 10, 13, 14. 14 out of 23 decks were slop
And I'll be
design
right
decks.
back. My plug is having a fit.
Yeah, you're good. So you have about 14 slop design decks out of Worlds. So like more than half of Worlds was just slop deck. That's kind of like again showing how strong the toolbox of slop design actually is. So yeah, like all of the problems that are currently plaguing the game between the tempo, the consistency, the card design was literally in full display in the decks represented. In terms of gameplay, again, it just feels like Bandai cares about just that macro level gameplay, and they don't really care about the nuance of the micro level gameplay, where it's just like, okay, how are these cards interacting with each other? What kind of interactions do we want to seek? How much memory are players actually spending? Like there's a lot of like very clear problematic things with the game that again, it really felt like this ban and restriction list just was not addressing. And that feels like it's the community sentiment is like, yeah, we're kind of getting tired with all of this overpowered bullshit. So, like, where do you go from here? Do you power up the game to handle the current issues so that way the current issues are no longer issues, but now you're printing more issues? Do you depower the game and be like, okay, we're not going to be printing things that are passing this power threshold? Like, I don't exactly know where Bandai is thinking and wanting the game to go, but based on their ban and restriction list, it tells me that they just want us to buy the new stuff. Like, that was my big takeaway, was they just want us to buy the new stuff, and like OTKs are fine, even though they're not, because they constantly address them. Tempo issues are fine, even though they're not, because again, that's something they constantly have addressed in the past. And like, there were so many things. Like, all they had to do was just look at anyone in the community was posting. And I don't think like the vast majority of people were like very far off to what actually should have gotten hit and what should be considered. And like, this is where like what gets hit should be considered something to look out for in future card designs, where it's just like, okay, we can't print zero cost adoptions. So why are we printing zero cost adoptions? Because we're just going to have to ban that shit later. Something like, okay, this thing has multi-attacks with security attack +1. It enables this degenerate loop. Why are we letting that in the game? Like, I don't exactly understand what Bandai is trying to do with the current design of the game. And that's the part that concerns me the most, is like, I don't even think they know what they're doing. They're just printing shit. Like, that's honestly what it really just feels like to me, is like, they don't know what they're doing. They're just printing shit, and they just see the line going up, and they're just like, oh, if we print more sets, we could just make more money because more people will buy it. And like, I don't necessarily think that's the most healthy experience for the game to currently be in, because now you're training your players to behave and play the game in a particular way. So now we'll be more wary of specific things that they are designing in the game. So it's just like, okay, why am I wasting my time with a stack deck when I could just play a slop deck? Slop decks are obviously the best thing that we could do. But why am I investing in this slop deck when the tournament I'm going to be competing is for the next slop deck? So I'm just not going to even buy the set because everything I need is going to be in the next set. So like it really creates a lot of issues that I think like a lot of people are just not really paying attention to, especially Bandai. So yeah, it's just a really, really awkward situation. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like, if I was Bandai putting out this ban and restriction list, I would be embarrassed. Like, I would truly, wholeheartedly be absolutely embarrassed that I thought just these cards alone was okay enough of a ban list when all they have to do is just do a mild bit of research to figure out what people are actually complaining about. It feels so tone deaf in that regard, where it's just like they're not paying attention. And even if they were using older data, there was still old enough data to support more cards getting banned and limited on top of newer data. So like it legitimately didn't make sense. And especially this goes to the frequency of the ban restriction list, which is something I've also been a huge advocate for. The more sets they print, the less time it gives the designers to check and balance those sets. Broken shit comes out. Therefore, they need to ban shit more frequently because they increase the amount of sets. And 2 ban and restriction lists, as we've already experienced, is not enough. And I think like the only other time like Bandai really had a bad ban and restriction list, I think was literally when just Geo Greymon, or not Geo Greymon, just Greymon X Antibody was banned. Because that card was limited as the only update. That was the only time that the list hasn't actually grown in the amount of cards getting banned and limited. But that year, we also did get like an emergency ban and restriction list, or not really an emergency one, just another update out of left field. So maybe by May, we're going to be getting another update, and like Bandai is just thinking about what they actually should do to address the current issues with the game by May. And it would be nice if they like said something at DigiCon about what's coming up in terms of like the TCG, but I think DigiCon is just going to announce Elysium, because if they're trying to tie everything nicely with Liberator, the comic is ending, so it would be like the perfect time to announce that Elysium is going to be coming. I feel like Elysium, a summer date would make sense. So I just don't know, because like what are they going to announce at DigiCon otherwise if it's not Elysium? Like, we just got a ban restriction list. They could obviously say, "Hey, we hear you. We're listening to your feedback." Obviously, like 90% of people are saying that this was not enough. So we'll do another one when BT25 comes out. And I think like every main BT set is probably a good idea, so that way we get like at least 4 banner restrictions a year. Because just again, power creeping to fix your problems is not actually fixing your problems. It's sweeping it under the rug and pretending that they don't exist. They need to actually objectively stop and look and think about what is the issues with the game. And I feel like part of it really does stem from my hatred of training cards. I've been saying that for a long time. Other people are starting to realize that now. But yeah, like the training cards obviously started the consistency like boosting and the tempo boosting, which caused a lot of like OTK enabling, because like why not just raise out a Digimon and just win the game on the spot. It just makes sense to me. So I don't know exactly what Bandai is going to do to fix the game, but I feel like they're in a position right now where they have to do something. They have to do something. I think if they choose to actively do nothing, then that is going to start a very bad trend and a downward spiral for the longevity of the game. Because right now, Digimon is still Bandai's number 2 card game. Like, obviously, we're not One Piece, but we're obviously not everyone else. Everyone else
Sorry,
still.
I'm back, man.
You're good. Everyone else still isn't putting up Digimon numbers, and that's why I think, like, Bandai now needs to really think about what is the issues with the game and start fixing them. Because
We're
that's
gonna
what.
dive down the wrong hole, and we aren't following Alice anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of stores are already 1 foot out of the door when it comes to the game as is. A lot of players are already 1 foot out of the door when it comes to the game as is. So like they probably aren't gonna see it in the short term, but in the long term, especially if AD01 fucks up, they're really gonna start seeing what the hell just happened here. Like, and it's literally very obvious to see.
It's
Um,
gonna hurt very badly for most stores to the point that it actually may kill the game.
yeah, and it's not like Bandai can't hit high rarity cards, and it's not like they can't hit cards from the second newest set because they obviously could because they've already made their money. So there's no actual financial incentive for them to not do those types of plays if it makes the game healthier overall. And I feel like that's part of Bandai's big problem is like they set up these arbitrary rules that really aren't necessarily panning out the way that they probably would want.
Nope. No, they are not. I feel
So
like it's more likely biting them in the ass at this point.
yeah, so I talked a little bit about Digicon on how I personally would want to see like them announce an update where it's just like, yep, we're gonna have a banner restriction list go into effect as of May when the new set comes out for BT25. Obviously, that's way too wishful thinking. But do you
A little bit.
have do you have any like thoughts about what you want to see at Digicon? Because the other thing I talked about is like Liberator's comic is going to be coming to an end, so maybe they're going to announce Elysium.
I hope for the Elysium because at this point they need some kind of IP to actually keep people's interest in this game. You know?
Yeah, like I've already slowed down on buying products, and I think I'm gonna finish out Block 5 strong enough to do what I have been doing as a collector. But I think starting in Block 6, which is going to be the starter decks and BT25, um, I think I'm gonna slow down again. I don't think I'm gonna buy into a master playset of everything. Because right now, one, it hasn't really panned out for me very well. And two, I don't play everything to where I feel like I need it anymore. Not saying like I'm doing this because the game is dying. I'm doing this to not really make a statement, but like I'm doing this because I don't feel like I need to collect every single card anymore. Is kind of where I'm getting at. Like I have developed in my life enough to where I just maybe want to buy the deck that I feel like I want to play and literally nothing else.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Because let's just face it, it really is not great.
Cause I was buying like at least the base rarity of like every single card. Promos exclude like promos and LM cards aside. Because like fuck promos and fuck LM. Um because I couldn't get all of the promos even from playing at the very beginning of the game. I still haven't gotten all of the promos, like all of the core, not really core promos. Uh, where did I stop? Um, I haven't really gotten all of the promos leading up to promo. 166, which is Digicon. So I'm still missing a good chunk of the older promos. So I'll eventually collect those and finish that. But yeah, I'm already done being a competitive player. So that
And
was
I agree with
already
that 100%
So that was
at this
already a
point.
huge step back because that was the main reason why I was collecting a master playset of everything. Wasn't necessarily to be a collector because I would collect in base rarity. So it's just like, what's the point of being a collector if it's just for base rarity? Well, it's because I actually wanted to play the cards and I wanted to make sure I had a playset to actually play with the cards that I wanted.
Yeah. A lot of the team has stepped back from this card game because it has not been great. And for all the listeners to this, we will probably still be doing these podcasts, but we are going to be probably taking a step back from the competitive. Right, Sam?
Yeah, like I've already like if there's a tournament that's close enough to me, like sure, I'll bite and I'll go play in that. But in terms of like going out and trying to have the goal of going to worlds and being the best there never was, or there ever was, uh, um,
No, never was pretty accurate.
yeah, like I kind of gave up on that dream because like I realized my designer brain plus competitive brain did not leave a very good taste in my mouth for how much power creep was just in like injected into the game in such a short period of time. Like honestly, I think like the biggest power leaps kind of fail like in comparison to what we probably experienced this year alone. Like it's actually leaps and bounds how much more powerful the game has gotten over like this year compared to previous years. And don't worry, previous years were pretty bad. But this feels like even more egregious. I think
Yeah.
like one of the weaker jumps probably I think one of the weaker jumps literally was going from BT 12 to BT 13. Actually, no, that was pretty big because that was the year that we got trainings. So obviously the first year was like not necessarily that huge. We got DNAs off of the first year. Um, the second
Still
year,
outrageous.
yeah, the second year we had OTKs and X antibodies. Going into more no, so the second year probably had the least amount of power creep. Um, because that was going from OTKs to just other OTKs. And I guess a control play style too. So like the second year probably was the least egregious. I'd have to go back and I'd have to like look at like the different amounts of power creep that was in the different blocks. Um, but yeah, this feels incredibly strong and like it's feeling less and less rewarding to play. And if I'm not going to be playing very much competitively, like I just don't feel like I need to collect all of the cards anymore because like I'm not going to be playing every single deck like I used to.
Honestly, I've been looking more and more into the new one of the new games that have been up on Kickstarter following Cyberpunk. You know?
I mean, that's the other big problem is like the competition for card games right now is like so incredibly fierce that like if you're really displeased with Digimon, like yes, you could just jump ship and play like literally almost any other game. There's like a dozen of them on the market right now. Um
Understatement.
yeah, but I'm not saying I'm done with Digimon. I think like depending on Elysium, that's going to dramatically change my outlook on what I do as a player and the even the content that I would make. Because I'm not doing like locals gameplay footage. I rely on my streams to like just do a lot of casual games and just dick around with the simulator, which then would transition into me just doing that but Elysium, and then I could do like more Elysium dedicated content um, versus like overarching TCG related content. So
Yeah.
yeah, like Elysium is going to be a very, very big turning point for the game because like we still know next to nothing about what Elysium is actually going to do, what the game is going to look like and feel like, what the pack opening experience is going to be changed to, and how packs are going to get acquired. Like, there's a lot of unknowns. Which is why I hope, like, Digicon, they say something, because otherwise, like, I have no idea what the fuck they're going to say at Digicon, because, like, this Digicon specifically feels like it's going to be very boring, because we already know everything that's in the pipeline. So it's just like, we already know that Time Strangers DLC just finished. So video game wise, what are they actually going to be talking about? Probably nothing. Card game wise, outside of Elysium, we already know the product lineup for almost the entire year. So, like, what is left to say? Probably nothing. The anime, we already know Beat Break is mid-run. Like, it's going to be running all the way up until October. So, like, what are they going to say?
It's still a good anime.
It's a very good anime. But, like, what anime
I still
news...
hate Tomorrow.
Yeah, but, like, what anime news are we actually going to get? Like, probably nothing. Like, they're probably going to introduce, like, the next arc, because this one's almost done. But, like, outside of just that, like, I don't know what else they're gonna say. And then toys, like, V bracelets failed. So what, are we just gonna get, like, more crossover pendulums? Like the V pets? Yeah, like the V pets. It's just like, I don't know what we're gonna get. But I'm not gonna be buying Digimon toys, no offense. So it's just like, it's another thing that I don't care about. So it's just like, what's Digicon actually going to look like? Because in previous years, Digicon was like actually a laughing stock. It was borderline a joke. I've wasted
Still
so
is
much
a
time.
joke.
Yeah, I wasted so much time watching Digicon. The only important Digicon literally was like last year, when we actually got more Time Strangers news. We got literally the showcase of Beat Break. Like, 2025's Digicon was like huge because there actually was a lot of movement in the IP. This year, they're just trying to continue the mobility, but we already know everything that they're doing. So, like, I don't know.
There's really not much you can say to actually put them up on a pedestal.
No,
Because sadly enough,
and they're showing Digicon on my birthday too, of all days. So I'm just like, oh, do I stream me watching Digicon, because I'm already probably going to be streaming, like, just bullshitting around with games more, like I have been, except this time it's on my birthday. So, like, I don't know. I know, like, for breakfast, my family is thinking about taking me to, like, an all-you-could-eat breakfast buffet, it sounds amazing. So, yeah. So if anyone's curious, my birthday is on March 21st. So, I'll probably end up doing a live stream for that, just because I just want to shoot some games and talk some shit. So, I don't know if do you think the simulator will be updated with the ban and restriction list? I'm
it's
curious.
not.
It's not.
It's not.
Did they make any news or announcements that they're gonna do an update for the ban and restriction list?
Not that I'm aware of.
Darn. Oh well. Well, I mean, I could still, like, do some of that myself. Like, I could just mess around with Hoodie, just running Shock at 1, and just kind of just seeing what I could come up with. Like, that doesn't sound like terribly awful, and just being like, yeah, look, I'm having a great time playing Hoodiemon, still doing some hyper toxic stuff.
I feel bad for this Galacti player. I tapped his fucking Galactimon immunity with 20k that at the end of my turn. Yeah. Fuck out of here.
So, anyway, tell us what your thoughts about what you want to see at Digicon down in the comments below. And sorry if it sounded a little bit negative and pessimistic throughout this episode. It's just, we have very much deep concerns for the future of the game, and Bandai has not made any of those issues go away in terms of, like, our overall thoughts on the direction of the game and if they're going to actually make the game healthy or not. It seems like that's not in Bandai's current interest, and I think that's pretty sad because I want nothing more than to enjoy this game to its fullest, and Bandai is robbing me of that potential. Just with poor business decisions and poor design decisions, and poor ban and restriction decisions too.
Yeah, it's not exactly a great bit.
Yep.
We still truck on forward though, so
Yep. So, I guess this is a good place to end it because I already talked like a lot about the ban and restriction list. I'm sure there's like more to say like with other people, so I might. Um, I don't think I'm going to be doing any more like dedicated ban and restriction content on my channel. I think I've already said my pieces. But yeah, so my birthday is going to be this Saturday, March 21st. If you are watching this in post and post Saturday, feel free to catch the VOD. I'm probably just going to be having fun, messing around, playing some games, and maybe watching DigiCon. So again,
having fun cracking jokes.
yeah, again, like, feel free to tell me your thoughts on what you want to see out of DigiCon down in the comments below. With that, I think this is a good place to leave it off, and we will see you all in the next episode. Later.
Have a great day, guys.